Hello and welcome. Whether you're listening to this on your commute, maybe double checking a market entry strategy, or just, trying to keep a finger on the pulse of Central Asia, we're really glad you're here.
We are the Gambling Databases research team.
And we're a group dedicated to delivering these in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape. In each country-specific report, we explore key aspects like local regulations, taxation, player experience.
Operator conditions, emerging trends, the whole picture.
Exactly. Our goal is to provide a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry functions within each market and, what makes it unique.
And today, we're opening the file on the Kyrgyz Republic, Kyrgyzstan.
Now, if you've been tracking our internal memos or just the industry chatter since late 2022, you know this market has been flashing on the radar. It's one of those situations where, at first glance, the spreadsheet looks incredible.
It really does.
You see a market that just ended a decade-long ban on gambling. You see a tax rate that is, frankly, aggressive in a good way. And you think, okay, this is it. This is the next frontier.
It definitely has that gold rush energy on the surface.
Yeah.
But we spent the last 3 weeks tearing apart the 2025 finalized numbers. And the picture that emerged is, well, it's complicated.
Complicated is a polite way of putting it. When I was going through the regulatory framework for our report, I just kept thinking this is a trap. It looks like a gold mine, but it feels like a minefield.
That's exactly right. It's January 20th, 2026, and looking at the state of play, Kyrgyzstan is the definition of a market of contradictions. It lures operators in with one hand.
With that low tax rate, exactly,
Yeah.
that incredibly low tax rate. And then it effectively slaps them with the other hand via the entry costs, just to tease the headline numbers before we get into the weeds. We're looking at a gross gambling revenue tax GGR of just 4% for online casinos, which is virtually unheard of. That undercuts Malta, that undercuts Curacao. I mean, on paper, that is an absolute dream.
It is. But then you look at the price of admission. The license fee can run up to $1.1 million.
Wow.
And remember, we aren't talking about the UK or New Jersey here. We're talking about a developing economy in Central Asia.
Right. So the mission for this analysis is to answer a simple question. Does the math actually work here? Is this a genuine growth opportunity, or is it, as we labeled it in our executive summary, a tax haven trap? I really want to dig into that trap concept because the math we did was shocking. But we need to set the scene first. We can't talk about the money until we understand the rules of the game. So the market opened up back in 2022.
With the gambling activities in the Kyrgyz Republic law, yeah, it was a massive pivot.
But looking at the governance structure, it feels a bit disjointed. It's not just one regulator calling all the shots, is it?
No, and this is the first real red flag for any compliance officer listening.
Yeah.
It's a bifurcated system. You have two different bodies pulling the strings. If you're looking at land-based operations,
Yeah.
so brick and mortar, you're answering to the Financial Regulation Service. But if you're looking at online gambling, your regulator is the Communications Regulation Service.
That always makes me nervous. When the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, or, you have financial regulators doing one thing and comms regulators doing another, you usually end up with gray areas.
Exactly. And the biggest gray area, or maybe the most defining feature of this market, is the foreigner-only rule. This is crucial for understanding the government's psychology here.
Right.
If you open a physical casino in Kyrgyzstan today, you are strictly 100% banned from letting a Kyrgyz citizen through the door.
It's the classic exporting vice model, right? We see this in other places, but it's particularly stark here. They want the tax revenue. They want the tourists from, say, Russia or China to come spend money.
But they want to hermetically seal their own population off from the moral danger of gambling. Precisely. The land-based sector is an export product. These casinos are geographically restricted to specific zones, primarily Bishkek and the Issyk-Kul region, which is a big tourist hub.
Okay, but here's the thing. That regulatory split you mentioned creates a paradox, right? Because that foreigner-only rule is strictly enforced at the physical door. They check passports. But online...
Online is the loophole. For now, yes.
Right.
Online gambling is what we describe in the report as loosely regulated when it comes to locals. Unlike the physical casinos where there's that hard barrier, there isn't currently a robust mechanism stopping a local Kyrgyz resident from logging onto a licensed site.
So you have this kind of hypocritical dynamic where a local can't walk into a casino in Bishkek, but they can sit on a park bench right outside that casino and play slots on their phone legally.
For now. And I really have to emphasize for now. The government is tightening oversight. But as it stands in early 2026, The online market is effectively the only place where domestic activity exists. If you want to target the Kyrgyz population, you have to be digital.
I want to touch on the land-based requirements for a second because it shows the government isn't playing around. I mean, they aren't letting just anyone open up shop.
No, definitely not.
I was looking at the specs. You need a minimum of 200 square meters of gaming floor. If you're in the capital, Bishkek, you need at least 10 gaming tables. In other regions, it's 5. Slot halls need at least 30 machines.
And don't forget the surveillance. Real-time video recording that has to be stored for 3 months. This isn't a mom-and-pop setup. They're demanding professional, high-capital operations. They want the glitz. They want that tourism appeal.
So knowing all that, the high barrier for land-based and the weird loophole for online, who's actually operating there right now, is it a crowded field?
It's a very short list. It's a nascent market. As of our data cutoff, there are only about 5 licensed online casinos.
Yeah.
You'll see names like Palmium and Internet Technologies Venice. On the land-based side, only 3 licensed casinos.
So not many at all.
No. So yes, that first mover advantage is theoretically there. It's not a crowded room. But there's a very good reason the room isn't crowded.
And that brings us to the ugly part, the money. Let's go back to that tax haven trap idea. I'm looking at the tax table in our report. 4% GGR for online, a flat 10% corporate income tax. If you just showed me those two numbers, I'd tell you this is probably the most competitive jurisdiction in the region. That 4% is bait. It's designed to look delicious on a P&L statement.
It is absolute bait. It lures you in because you think about your operating margins and you see all that profit you get to keep, but then you get the invoice for the license.
$1.1 million.
$1.1 million. It's a classic legislative error we see in emerging markets. We call it an import-export regulatory failure. The government looks at a mature market, say the UK or Switzerland, and they say, oh, they charge $1 million for a license, so we should too.
But they forget to check the underlying economics.
Completely. We pulled the 2025 economic indicators for this. Kyrgyzstan's GDP per capita is approximately $1,370.
$1,370 per person, per year.
Correct. So they have priced the license like it's a Tier 1 European economy, but the customer base has the spending power of a Tier 3 developing economy. There is a fundamental mismatch between the cost of entry and the value of the player.
Okay, I want to make this tangible because when I saw the profitability assessment section of our report, I actually double-checked the math. I thought we'd made a mistake.
I did too.
So let's role play this. I'm an operator. I write the check for $1.1 million. To just earn that money back, I'm not even paying my developers or for marketing or service, just trying to recoup the license fee. I need revenue. Right.
If we assume an average revenue per user, an ARPU of, say, $300 a year, which $300 is actually pretty aggressive for this region, isn't it?
It is. That's on the high end. That's assuming you're retaining them and they're spending consistently.
Okay, so even with that generous assumption, you would need about 3,700 active depositing players dropping $300 each every single year just to cover the principal on the license.
And 3,700 high-value players in London is nothing. You can find that on a single bus route. But in Kyrgyzstan, finding that many people with that kind of disposable income who also want to gamble it's like hunting for unicorns. You're squeezing a very, very small lemon.
And that just kills the ROI timeline.
Yeah.
Usually in iGaming, you want a path to profit in, 12 to 18 months? Here, we modeled it out. The break-even horizon is 3 to 4 years. In the tech world, in the gambling world, 4 years is an eternity. Regimes change in 4 years. Technology changes. Locking up over $1 million of capital with a 4-year return is a very tough sell to a board of directors.
Which explains why we rated the profitability potential as poor for most operators. So who is this for then? Can anyone actually make this work? We see 2 specific profiles. 1, the massive regional operator. If you're a giant already operating in Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and you just want to paint the map, you might eat the cost just for the footprint. A strategic loss leader? Maybe. Or you try to use it as a hub for cross-border traffic, though that has its own legal headaches, too. The land-based giant. If you're building a massive resort in Issyk-Kul to attract Chinese high rollers, the $1.1 million is just a line item. You can cross-sell to your online platform. But if you are a mid-sized European operator or a startup, stay away. This market will bleed you dry. Okay, so let's say our listener is one of those massive regional giants. They've decided to take the plunge. Who are they marketing to? We touched on the GDP, but what about the demographics, the tech stack? Because the population is young.
Very young. Median age is roughly 29.7 years, and that's a huge asset. It means you don't have to teach your market how to use a smartphone. They're digital natives.
And the penetration stats back that up. Internet usage is high, around 88%. But the number that really jumped out at me in our report was mobile penetration. It's at 110%.
Right, that's a classic developing market signal. It means people have more than one SIM card. They're swapping SIMs to chase the best data deals, or because coverage is spotty.
Which, from an operator's perspective, is a nightmare for KYC, isn't it? Know your customer.
It's a massive headache. If a user's phone number changes every 3 months, maintaining account security becomes twice as hard. But it also tells you this is unequivocally a mobile-first market. If you launch a desktop-heavy site, you've already failed. You need a lightweight app that works on 4G, because 5G is barely a rumor there.
Let's talk about that infrastructure. Because Bishkek is one thing, but the rest of the country is, well, it's mountains.
Exactly. In Bishkek, speeds are decent, averaging 40 Mbps. You can run a live dealer stream on that. But once you get into rural areas, the bandwidth just drops off a cliff.
Sure.
We don't project a national 5G rollout until 2027 or 2028, so your product has to be optimized for lower latency.
And then there's the issue of getting paid. Payments are always the friction point in emerging markets. What's the story here?
It's a transition economy. In the villages, cash is king. But your players are in the cities. There, Visa and MasterCard work. But you absolutely have to integrate the local methods. We highlighted ELQR in the report. That's the local QR code payment system. It's exploding. You also need the Russian-influenced e-wallets like Kiwi and Yandex Money.
Okay.
And here's another trap hidden in the regulations currency.
Yes, the settlement currency. This is a big one for risk management.
Legally, payments must be settled in KGS, the Kyrgyz som. There's talk about allowing foreign currency, but right now, you are stuck with the som. This exposes you to huge currency fluctuation risk.
So you could have a great month, but lose your entire margin on the exchange rate.
Exactly. That 4% tax rate advantage. You just lost it all and then some before you could even repatriate the funds. You're not just betting on the players, you're betting on the Central Bank of Kyrgyzstan.
Okay, let's pivot to the critical risk warnings. We've talked about the license fee trap, the currency risk, but in our report, we flagged 3 major risks that are more existential. What's the scenario that keeps a chief risk officer up at night?
Risk number 1 is what we call the local ban contagion. Remember that hypocrisy we discussed? The government bans locals from physical casinos to protect them, but allows them online. That is a very fragile status quo.
It feels temporary.
It is. There's a high probability that the protectionist logic will eventually jump the fence. If a politician wants to make a name for themselves by saving the youth, they could harmonize the laws and ban locals from online play too.
And if that happens, your entire domestic player base evaporates overnight.
Overnight, you're left with a $1.1 million license to operate a website that no one in the country is allowed to visit. That is the sword of Damocles hanging over this market.
That is terrifying. Okay, what's number 2?
Regulatory opacity. The framework is new, from 2022. Politics in Kyrgyzstan have historically been volatile. Governments change, and when they do, appointees change. You might have a clear understanding with the current regulator, but 6 months later, a new director interprets the law differently. Enforcement is totally unpredictable.
And the 3rd?
Infrastructure limitations, which we touched on. You just have a natural ceiling on your market size. A huge percentage of the population simply cannot play complex games because their internet won't support it. You're fighting for the urban elite and ignoring everyone else.
So taking all of this into account, the bait of the low tax, the trap of the high fee, the currency risk, the regulatory fear, we have to give it a score. What's the final gambling database's country rating?
After crunching all the variables, the overall score landed at 5.5 out of 10.
5.5. So squarely in moderate to risky.
Exactly. It's not a failed market, but it is certainly not a healthy one. And the breakdown of that score is really telling.
Oh, so?
Well, if you look at player access, we gave it an 8.8 out of 10. For the player, it's great. They have access, payments work, they aren't being penalized. But then you look at operator ease. That scored a 6.2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And was dragged down almost entirely by that $1 million fee.
So our final assessment stands.
It is a tax haven trap. It's
Okay.
designed to look like a tax haven, but the entry costs completely destroy the model before you even get started.
So to wrap this analysis up with a final verdict, if I'm a CEO listening right now, what's the 1-sentence advice?
If you're a startup or you're looking for a quick ROI, run away. If you're a massive multinational with money to burn and a 10-year strategy for Central Asia, proceed with extreme caution. It's a tough market to love, despite those flashy headline numbers. I think the key takeaway for me is that Kyrgyzstan shows growth potential. We're projecting an 8 to 10% annual growth rate, but the government has priced themselves out of their own party.
That's the perfect analogy. They've set the cover charge so high the dance floor is empty. Until they lower that license fee or the standard of living skyrockets, the math just doesn't add up.
And that is where we will leave it for today, a fascinating look at a market that proves low taxes are not everything. Thank you for joining us for this analysis. We hope this saves you some time and potentially $1.1 million.
For the full text of this and other country reports, you can visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.
Until next time, keep analyzing the data. Goodbye.
Goodbye.